On this episode of Locked On Angels, today begins the baseball winter meeting. So what will the Halos do? Will they add any more this offseason? Will they make a trade for a bat or an arm? And how much more are they willing to spend in free agency? We've got some questions, and we're going to search for those answers. It's time to get locked on with Mike and Jon, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're just two super Halo dads. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers back together here with you. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, we are the Super Halo Bros, and together we are the hosts of Locked On Angels. We're going into our fourth season here in 2025 as the hosts of Locked On Angels. I can't believe time has flown by. Mike, I'm back. I'm
back.
Papa, and thanks for everybody who left such kind messages and support and prayers and thoughts and love and all those well wishes. So grateful. I gotta say, my wife and I, we made a little handsome dude. So there you go. I'm so thrilled, so in love with my son, and being a father is just the coolest thing in the world. So thank you to everybody who sent messages and left comments and all of that stuff. You guys are fantastic. It makes our Locked On Everydayer audience feel more like family. And you know, last time I was in the hospital was a very bad thing.
It was
earlier this year. And then this time it was a very good thing. So Thank you everyone for both your support for both instances. So anyway, thank you for that. On today's show, the winter meetings start today. You feel like they started last night, Mike, considering Juan Soto signed last night?
We'll take a moment. Let's take a moment and let's just talk about that right now, because that is an incredible signing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of years, a lot of money, 15 years, $765 million. Jon, do you think that kind of opens up the floodgates now as we get into the conversation about what the Angels might potentially do? I have a feeling that this opens the floodgates. This allows conversations now to move forward, because now you have kind of the ceiling, and you know what Juan Soto is going to get with the Mets. So it does kind of help shape conversations for other free agents,
right?
And perhaps allows them to have quicker conversations, right? And not having to wait to see if somebody else is going to do the other thing. So I know there's a lot of conversations we can have around that. We will have a further one on tomorrow's show, but give me your initial thoughts on what this does for the winter meetings and what this does for our Halos.
It certainly speeds things up, because everybody was waiting on where Juan Soto was going to go.
Yeah.
And there were so many different teams in the mix who were willing to spend that money. Now, all of those teams are going to pivot, and they're going to get their other free agents.
Yeah.
So maybe you consider Michael Conforto the official start to the winter meetings, because the Dodgers went, well, we're not getting Soto, so let's pivot. And I think that other teams like the Yankees and the Blue Jays were involved. Like, they're all going to have to pivot now, and it's going to speed things up in terms of, okay, we didn't get our guy, so let's go out and get this guy. I should say, we didn't get the guy of the winter, and so let's pivot and get other people here. So I do think it's going to speed things up. I do think that this is a great start to the winter meetings, even though technically they are today. Last night was very important, and it means that this winter meeting won't suck like last year, right, Mike?
Yes.
That was the worst winter meeting of all time, because all anybody did was complain about Shohei not talking to anybody and being secretive about it. And we called out the baseball writers because they were all complaining and crying and whining about it. Like, nobody wants to talk to us. Shohei's too private. Good. You deserve all of that.
Right.
So anyway, that's where I stand on it. Now that Soto's out of the way, not that a bunch of teams were in on him, but it allows the teams that were to pivot, get their other free agents, but also other teams who weren't in on Soto to compete for those pivots. I think that that's what's important here.
Yeah. So the big question for the Angels as they enter into the winter meetings is, are they going to add any more, right? Because they've added a lot so far, but a lot of the discussion has been, it's been bottom half of the roster. Yusei Kikuchi was more top half of the roster. Even Jorge Soler was kind of maybe middle part of the roster because they did need another bat. And so the discussions are, what are they going to do? The Angels do need another starter. There's been conversations about some bullpen help. And then the major conversation that they've had the last few weeks has been they need another bat. And there's been some conversation about a left-handed power bat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that we want to wrestle through together is the free agent pitchers. Right now, the names that are out there that have been connected to the Halos are Max Fried, Jack Flaherty, Sagano, and Evaldi are also out there. Sagano's coming from the far east, and he's somebody that I wanted on my team on my GM episode, and he's somebody I think would be a great addition to this Angels starting rotation. The name that's really kind of come up more often, even from everydayers, is Max Fried, John, because of the connection with Atlanta and Travis d'Arnaud, and of course Ron Washington is here. So what do you think at the end of the winter meetings? Are any of these pitchers on the Angels, or are they close to signing any of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, there's this winter meeting will be fun for the Angels if they land Max Fried.
Yeah.
If they land, I would even say Evaldi. I would think that's a fantastic move. I know Flaherty is kind of a hot commodity now. I worry about his history between the Cardinals and the Orioles, but at the same time, it's not like we need the best pitcher in the world on our team. What I would like to see, Mike, is kind of what you discussed on Friday with big free agent contracts. I would like to see some length for a Max Fried type, in that you get him for 5 to 7 years and he's around, and maybe not doing Max Fried things 5 to 7 years from now, but he's around during this window where, Logan O'Hoppe and Zach Neto kind of give you a better picture of who they are, and the Angels continue to add the young guys through the draft and push them up and get excited about them. I want to see a veteran, an ace like Max Fried, around the Halos for at least 5 to 7 years so that he can be the guy who leads a young staff to some victories and to some playoffs, hopefully.
Yeah, Max Fried gets signed at the end of the meeting. So does that mean that Reed Detmers is out of the rotation? If it's John Frisch's rotation, how would you go about that?
Well, you know me, I would put Kohanowitz in this rotation over Reed Detmers, but I mean, you can't deny Reed Detmers' stuff is really good. It's all between the ears for Reed Detmers. And so if there's somebody around this system and this organization who can help Reed Detmers get right, then I could see him having a place in the rotation in 2025. Mike, we saw it in 2024. We saw a Detmers who doesn't get in his own way and in his own head for the first month of the season. And then suddenly, I don't know if it's anxieties, I don't know if it's like self-doubt or what have you, it all caught up with him. Basically, I'm saying that I would roll with Kohanowitz because he has proven that he can compete at a major league level, but Detmers is just too good to do anything like trade or not give him a chance. And again, if they can get him right between the ears, which I think they can, all it takes is one voice, the one right person to get it right. And I think that he could be great in this rotation.
We have a good segment coming up later on this week about Reed Detmers that I think will be really helpful for our discussion, but also for our everydayers. The second thing, John, is that the Angels have been looking for hitters, and there's a power bat that they've been looking for, potentially a left-handed bat. But you and I have actually been in on Haesung Kim. Haesung Kim. Yes, Haesung Kim. And Haesung Kim is somebody that you've liked, but Haesung Kim has been somebody that has been posted and now is able to negotiate. I mentioned him on Friday, John, and the thing that has been the narrative around him and why teams are interested is because he's a known commodity. He's a proven player with a proven track record, plays good defense, can run the bases really well. He doesn't have much pop in his bat. I mentioned on Friday that his ISO last season was .099. So ISO for those that didn't know, like, because I didn't know, it means isolated power. So it measures your raw power. League average is 140. And so there's some concern that Kim's bat may not play up to the major league level. Do you have concerns about that? Do you think that he would be a good signing for the Halos? Or do you think that it really needs to be another power bat, like a trade for Alec Boehm playing third base? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when I considered adding Ha-Seong Kim, it was because I wanted to see the middle infield short up and move Rengifo over to third base, right? At the same time, I understand the concern around power. This conversation about the Angels being connected to like a left-handed power bat, to me, it really points to somebody like Cody Bellinger or Jock Peterson.
Yeah.
But the thing is you already have a power bat DH type in Jorge Soler, so you can't really use Jock Peterson. So Bellinger's kind of the only answer. He can play center field and first base, so maybe that's the answer. That would require a trade with the Cubs. But Mike, the left-handed power bat thing, I don't know if it makes so much sense to me. On one hand, I want to see Mickey Moniak in there more. People are going to laugh at me because it's Mickey Moniak, but at the same time, if he can just be who he is rather than who they were trying to make him figure out he was last season, the guy hits 20 homers.
Yeah.
The guy hits doubles. He's fast enough to hit triples. I think about Rengifo, and his power side is from the right side, but he is a switch hitter. So you do have a lefty. He didn't hit as many home runs last year. He was more of a contact guy. But I get back to kind of what Jared Weaver was saying. Like, pitching and defense really matter.
Yeah.
And Ha-Seong Kim is a proven commodity, like you said, especially at second base, and a speedster. So if you get a chance to keep your pitchers in the game with good defense, then I think the Angels will have some success. And you got to consider Trout. Trout is always a threat.
Right.
He's going to be the power bat. He's the centerpiece. I understand that there's the injury concern, but what I'm saying is I think you already have power bats. I know it's not a lefty power bat. At the same time, I think about Joe Adell hitting 20 home runs, Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, Taylor Ward. They've all hit 20-plus home runs. So the power is there. It needed a boost. And I think that's why Jorge Soler is there, but that gets the job done for me. At the same time, I really think the Angels honestly need to emphasize contact, because we've seen them be a power hitting team. We've seen them be a home run hitting team. That didn't exactly help either. And that was 2023 when they had a ton of home run power, but a ton of strikeouts too.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Cody Bellinger. We're actually going to talk about the Cubs and the Angels in our second segment, so hang out for that. One last question, John. Taylor Ward, into the winter meetings. Is he still an Angel? What do you think?
Ooh, you know what? If anybody's going to get moved, I think it's going to be Taylor Ward and maybe even Reed Detmers. I know I just got done talking about how I think that he's going to play a big part in the rotation if somebody can get him right between the ears. So I think that either Taylor Ward or Reed Detmers could be moved, and it would hurt to see, especially Detmers go. Yeah. Taylor Ward, I could understand more. You and I have been contending that he would be a great trade piece. But I would be really interested to see what the result of that trade is, whether or not it's a future move or a win now move. That would concern me with a trade for Detmers. If it were a trade for Taylor Ward and it was a win now move, I'd be okay with that. I would totally be okay with that. Yes. But if it's going to compromise Reed Detmers' future, and they're not going to trade for future pieces with Reed Detmers, that would be concerning to me at the end of the day. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, we're sharing a trade candidate that potentially fits the Halos for another good bat. So who is it? What would it take for the Halos to get this player? We'll talk about that coming right up.
Everydayers, today's show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. John, isn't there a song by the Counting Crows called Omaha? Yes. I bet you they were singing about Omaha Steaks, because these suckers are good, dude. And they're a great gift at Christmas time. They have unrivaled quality and the taste is fantastic. And so you can give this gift this Christmas time and save 50% during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, just because you're listening to our show right now, you're going to get an extra $30 reward when you shop early and score an extra $30 with our promo code MLB 5 generations of experience. Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience. And everybody loves a good steak. Even vegetarians, don't lie. You love a good steak as well because they're delicious. Omaha Steaks, you can find them at omahasteaks.com. Our listeners are going to get an extra $30 off with a promo code MLB and a $30 reward card when you shop early. Plus, you're going to get 50% off of their website-wide on everything. Just visit omahasteaks.com. That's OMAHA steaks.com. Again, promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Every day, as we're talking about the winter meetings. They start today. Felt like they started last night with the Juan Soto deal and the Michael Conforto deal. Everyone was blown away by that. No, I'm just kidding.
You were just mad because you wanted him.
No, I didn't. Absolutely.
No, like like 3 years ago, I think you wanted him.
Well, I don't even think that, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear how defensive I got there? No, I didn't. That was brother defensive sounding right there.
We've done a show in a couple of days.
Yeah, we're back together, everybody.
Yeah.
The bros are back. All right, here are the potential trade candidates from the Halos. We talked about Tyler Anderson. We talked about Taylor Ward. We talked about Reed Detmers. Tyler Anderson is one. Luis Rengifo is also one. All of them were rumored as trade candidates at the trade deadline last season.
Yes. Now, I want to bring up a real quick point.
Yeah.
One of our everydayers asked, like, "Hey, why are we talking about this? Because nobody wanted them at the trade deadline. Why would they want them this offseason?"
Different situation.
Yes, different situation. And there's a ton of rumors around these guys. And the Angels could potentially do more now than they did at the trade deadline with a few of these guys. Maybe Tyler Anderson's value goes down, but I think Taylor Ward's goes up and Rengifo's goes up. And you're right. It's a completely different situation this offseason.
I've brought it up before. If you know you're going to get, all-star Tyler Anderson in the first half of the season, and maybe you expect him to tail off in the second half.
Yeah.
If I was a team, I'd let him help carry us in the first half of the season and then pick up somebody else at the deadline to carry you the rest of the way if Anderson can't keep up what he's been doing. It's situations like that really make this different from the trade deadline, because at the trade deadline, teams get desperate. They're like, man, we really need this guy. And so they'll they'll add the extra sauce on the trade in order to make it happen. Right, Mike?
Right. Absolutely. Now we've talked about that bat, that bat that the Angels need, a left-handed bat, maybe a right-handed bat. And John, you hinted at a bat that's been connected to the Angels, and that is Cody Bellinger.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another name on the Cubs as well, and that's Seiya Suzuki. Now,
yes, sir.
I know that there's kind of like people going, I don't know if that'll happen, but hear me out. Joel Sherman of the New York Post said that the Cubs are determined to trade one of those two guys, and the idea is that they would redirect their resource back into upgrading other parts of the roster. Now, let's talk about Bellinger just for a minute, because he's the one that is probably more in the department of they're gonna trade him if they can trade him than Seiya Suzuki. So let's start with Cody Bellinger. John, can you give us a recap of Cody Bellinger this last season and maybe the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, just so to put it in context, he's a free agent after 2026. He's going to make $27.5 million this year. Then he can choose between a $5 million buyout or earning $25 million in 2026. That means even a one and done from Bellinger in 2025 is going to cost $32.5 million. So you have to consider that, because he won't be around could not be around for the entirety of the contract.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost you this year's salary and the buyout if he chooses not to stay. They might take a chance on him bouncing back from 2024. He had a great 2023, changed some things. Everyone points to his power numbers going down, but the fact is, that's intentional. That's what made him so good in 2023, is that he was trying to make more contact, especially with two strikes. That's why he did so well. I think maybe that played out a little bit more this season, and that's why the numbers were down for him.
Yeah, speaking of that 2023 season, Johnny, the slash line was 307, .356 on base and a .525 slugging, but he hit just 26 home runs, but his slugging was up because he was the dude was hitting the ball all over the place, and he was stealing 20 bags. FanGraphs credited him with 4.4 wins above replacement in 130 games in 2023. Those numbers dipped last year. He only had a 2.2 WAR last year. Home run total dipped to 18, only stole 9 bases, and he played less time because of Crow Armstrong, who is a young guy that's coming up with the Cubs that took over the spot. And one of the reasons why they're considering trading Bellinger, but they're also considering trading Seiya Suzuki, right?
I was just going to say, I mean, if you have Pete Crow Armstrong on your team, you're going to play him in center field. That's a given. Yeah. Seiya Suzuki, you guys have seen it. I have a Cubs jersey with Suzuki on the back.
Dave Diller, everydayer, gave it to us.
Well, he gave me the Seiya, which it looks like the Sega logo, but it says Seiya. I just like Seiya Suzuki, and the reason I like him is because Mike Trout is his favorite player, and that's why he took 27. So maybe that's some incentive to get him over to Anaheim. But let's talk about him, Mike. 381 major league games. He's got 55 home runs and has a 10.2% walk rate. So far, a 278 batting average, 354 on base, 470 slugging. That gave him a 129 weighted runs created plus. That means that he's 29% better than league average. Home run totals went from 14 to 20 and then 21 in the 3 seasons that he's been here. The walk rate has gone up from 9.4 to 10.8 over the 3 years. And then here's what's really interesting. WRC plus has gone from 118 in the rookie season to 128, then 138. He's not considered a strong defender.
Right.
But you have to consider that weighted runs created plus also takes that into account for the way these guys play. And so it's not necessarily the worst ding against him. He's got -5 outs above average, but defensive runs saved, he has him at league average for Seiya Suzuki. -4 defensive runs saved in his rookie season, then +2 in each of the next 2 seasons. It's the bat that really makes him appealing. And the fact that he's going to make $18 million over the next 2 years, age 30, age 31, that's $36 million so far for the next 2 years. And people that are comparable to him on the free agent market are likely to, earn more than that. So 2 questions for you, Mike. We have a 30-year-old and 31-year-old on lock for the next 2 years if we want him. And that's Taylor Ward. And we've talked about Taylor Ward's defense. We've talked about his numbers at the plate before. So you tell me, Suzuki or Taylor Ward? What do you say?
Man, I would want Suzuki, and I know you're paying him a whole lot more than you're paying Taylor Ward, but what you're getting with Suzuki, I think, is exactly what you want in that outfield, and you're also getting life from Seiya Suzuki. You're getting energy from Seiya Suzuki. You're getting somebody who loves Mike Trout and probably will be an infusing of all sorts of everything that you could ever want in a player in this clubhouse. And you can use Taylor Ward and potentially another player to trade to get somebody for the starting rotation or maybe for the bullpen. And so I think if I'm going to take 2 years of Suzuki or 2 years of Ward, I'm going to go Suzuki, even though it's going to cost a little bit more, because you can save that money, John, by getting rid of Taylor Ward. And even if they decide to do more of a salary dump with Taylor Ward, they could actually potentially just be paying Seiya Suzuki what they were paying Taylor Ward, because they get rid of $9 million in Taylor Ward's salary. The $18 million from Seiya comes in, cut that in half because you lost $9 million. So I don't think they'll want to just dump Taylor Ward, but I do think that it's a better move, and it infuses this roster with the type of guys that I think that Perry Manassian has been looking for. So sign me up for Seiya. What do you say?
I do like Seiya Suzuki. It's hard to not be biased here when we talk about him. Cody Bellinger is somebody that I thought, we did an episode last year about like making the case for Bellinger. Would it be an Artie move? And I wasn't so sold. And then as the offseason went on, I went, oh, I think I would be sold on that. And I understand he didn't have a great 2024, but the flexibility to play center field and first base. I know he's a lefty and so is Sean Noel, but still, there's your left-handed power bat that you're looking for. I know the power numbers haven't been as high as in the past, but still make contact. You got a good slugging percentage. Power doesn't have to equate to home runs. It could be slugging. And that's why they added Soler, right?
Yeah. Does that right field wall play into your thought about having Bellinger? Because GA, we said it often, GA is probably pissed that is now a home run, because he had 56 doubles one year. Probably would have had 56 home runs if that was a home run and not a double off the wall, right?
I could see a very Cole Calhoun-like season from Cody Bellinger in terms of the power. But remember, Cole Calhoun, am I wrong? He had some good gap-to-gap stuff, and he was fast.
Absolutely.
And, he played a killer right field. I miss watching him out there.
Yep.
So a lot of interesting options here that the Angels could trade for and use some of the trade chips that they have to offer other teams.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. This sportsbook app gives you everything that you need in the places that you need to find it. All of the details are on the same page. You make your bets, you have the stats. This way you can be really smart when you're placing those bets. So just visit FanDuel.com today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, FanDuel.com is where it's at. Get started there. Never waste a hunch, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Well, this is something a little fun, a little pivot. Mike, it's the Halos making some history at the winter meetings. So they've made pretty significant moves at or during the winter meetings. I actually had a Facebook memory yesterday of my status when Albert Pujols signed with the Angels. I was like, this is the best day ever. And somebody in the comments.
Go ahead. I think I have mine saved because I remember putting Albert Pujols on the Angels. Oh my. I remember how excited I was when he signed.
You know what's funny is at the same time, the Dodgers were having a terrible day.
Yes.
And somebody in my comments was like, this is embarrassing for the Dodgers. How the tables have turned.
How the turntables, huh?
How the turntables. So that was pretty funny. But let's start all the way back 1977, Mike. Why don't you take us back?
Yeah, first of all, here's that post.
Okay.
Albert Pujols. Oh man, on the Angels. Oh man. I wasn't as articulate.
Remember when we posted on Facebook? Remember those days?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that was the first time I opened up Facebook in about 6 months.
Yeah, I don't sniff Facebook anymore.
Right. So there's a lot of things that the Angels have done at or during the winter meetings. There's some that we won't mention, but just for big moves' sake, we've saved those for this conversation. So let me take you back to 1977. I wasn't born, you weren't born, but the Angels made a big move. They traded for Brian Downing, Dave Frost, and Chris Knapp, and got and gave away Bobby Bonds, Thad Bosley, and Richard Dotson. Traded to the White Sox, and the Angels got Brian Downing. And of course, Downing proved to be one of the best hitters in Angel history. Had a 38 career WAR, ranks 4th amongst Angel position players, only behind Trout, of course, Jim Fregosi, and Tim Salmon. He was an all-star in 1979. He was inducted into the Angels Hall of Fame in 2009. So in 1977, they were Gene Autry making some moves and bringing Brian Downing over to the Halos.
All right, let me take you back to a place. Right?
Yep.
I'm going to take you back to a time and a place where we all didn't want Artie to sell the team and we weren't angry at him.
Yep.
And that was the 2003-2004 offseason. My contention is that this is the greatest offseason the Angels have ever had.
It's good.
Maybe one of the best offseasons of all time.
Yeah.
The Angels signed Bartolo Colon, Jose Guillen, and Kelvin Escobar by Christmas.
Yep.
Then in January, they signed Vladimir Guerrero.
Yeah.
One of, if not the best, offseason in Angels history and maybe MLB history. So good. I actually got to do some research on that and see where it stacks up because that is just too dang good right there.
Got them 92 wins that next season back into the playoffs, which was fun. All right, so let me fast forward to 2011. We just talked about it.
I have some thoughts on this. You know
okay.
I do.
Okay, Albert Pujols, 10 years. 240. Remember 240? We were like, oh my gosh, how much money is that? Right? It's apparently not a lot of money anymore.
Now we're up to almost 4 times that. That's insane.
And then also that year, John, that deal actually came after the Angels signed somebody that you really liked, CJ Wilson, 5 years, $77.5 million deal that season.
Now, I'm not defending CJ Wilson, the person, because I think he's kind of a bozo, but the contract was actually really good.
Yeah.
And when you consider 5 years, $77.5 million, great deal. I know he didn't pitch in 2016. I know he had some injuries, but man, we would all be crying if we had the pitcher of CJ Wilson's caliber for that cheap of a deal for 5 years, right?
Former bullpen guy that was turned and converted into a starter before he came over.
And he gets in trouble because he's associated with that offseason where they got Pujols. So like, what a terrible contract. No, not a terrible contract. Not the greatest contract in the world considering the injury history. But there was a point when the team stunk in 2013 that CJ was the best pitcher on the team at that point.
Yeah, so you got to share the 03-04 offseason with all of those great moves. Here's probably one of the worst offseasons for the Angels. 2012, they signed Sean Burnett, Joe Blanton, and then later on signed Josh Hamilton. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I'm with you. 2019, Rendon got his $245 million contract.
Yep.
Set a record for average annual value at $35 million for a third baseman, tied for the third largest average annual value with Steven Strasburg, and then behind Garrett Cole and Mike Trout. We've talked about the signings that we're hyped about, and again, that 03-04 offseason is so good, Mike. Do you remember how you felt? I mean, let's see, 03-04, I was going from 8th grade to 9th grade, so maybe my baseball knowledge wasn't quite as good as yours back then. How'd you feel?
Bartolo coming over was huge. That was huge. Kelvin Escobar was still a question. Bullpen guy, converted to be a starter, and ended up being pretty great for the Halos. Of course, Bartolo was great. The next season is when he won the Cy Young.
Yeah.
The Jose Guillen signing was a bit of an anomaly. Like, what was he going to be? He ended up being great, and he only lasted one season because they traded him away, right? Because he threw a fit. They actually got Juan Rivera and Myceres Torres for Jose Guillen.
Who would try to fight Mike Scioscia?
Right,
Come on.
Right. And then I remember being on a bus coming home from a camp that I was leading, and I got the alert that the Angels signed Vladimir Guerrero. And so I texted Locked On Everyday Cope, who now works with us, and I said, Vlad, bro, we got Vlad. And we went nuts on the bus. So that's a great memory for me.
So good. All right. Tell us where you were when you heard some of these signings, how you felt about them in Halos history. Hopefully we have some exciting news at the winter meetings this week.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB. Our friend Sully's going to give you a blend of humor and all sorts of baseball history and keep you updated all throughout the offseason. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, before we wrap up quickly, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels. Connect with Mike and I on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We want 10K by opening day, and get in the comments section because we'd love to hear from you. Mike, real quick, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Yeah, well, we talked about that big deal that Juan Soto signed. And so the big question we have is, does something like that, like, is that the lid? Is that the ceiling? And does it eliminate the Halos? Are the Halos going to ever be in these conversations ever again? Because they were previously with Trout, Pujols, those types of players. Will they ever be in that conversation again? Let's talk all about the details tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
So much better to have a second voice on the show.
How'd I do? I've got baby dad brain. Good?
You did great, bro.